Nobody warned you this was coming. Nobody gave a countdown. Nobody whispered it in a group chat. 1 second the internet was minding its business. The next second, Boom Child Protective Services is suddenly trending. Timelines are on fire, and Chrisean Rock looks like someone just yanked the plug out of her reality show mid-season. This wasn't a disagreement. This wasn't petty drama. This was a nuclear button getting smashed with no warning label attached. The moment Jaidyn Alexis allegedly involved CPS, everything shifted from messy celebrity beef into territory that makes the Kardashians look like they're arguing over salad forks. This is the kind of move that doesn't just burn bridges, it salts the earth underneath them. And Chrisean, oh, she didn't react. She detonated. The energy changed instantly. Screenshots started flying, voices got louder, sides got chosen. And suddenly everyone on the internet turned into a legal expert, a parenting specialist, and a body language analyst all at the same time. This felt less like gossip and more like someone leaked the wrong folder from the vault. The kind of folder you don't open unless you're ready to ruin friendships, reputations, and sleep schedules. If you thought this was just another celebrity tantrum, think again. Because once CPS enters the chat, the gloves are off, the cameras are rolling, and nobody walks away clean. And what happened next? Let's just say the internet has not stopped screaming since. Nobody ever thinks it's going to go that far. Online beef usually follows a familiar script, a few slick comments, some subliminal posts, maybe a dramatic Instagram lib where someone tells their truth while pretending not to care. But this jumped the tracks so fast it left scorch marks on the timeline. The moment CPS allegedly entered the conversation, the entire tone of the drama mutated into something colder, heavier, and a whole lot more dangerous. Because let's be honest, calling CPS isn't gossip. It isn't shade. It's not a messy tweet you can delete when the backlash hits. That's the kind of move that changes lives, reputations, and custody arrangements. That's the red button behind the glass case that says break only in case of total war. And once that button gets pressed, nobody's pretending this is entertainment anymore. Chrisean didn't just hear about it. She felt it. You could tell immediately from the shift in her energy. The chaos that people usually laugh at suddenly turned sharp and defensive. The jokes disappeared. The sarcasm dried up. What replaced it was raw panic mixed with rage, the kind that doesn't wait for clarification or legal advice. This wasn't a calculated response. This was someone reacting to what felt like a direct threat to her entire world. Social media noticed instantly. You could practically hear the collective "oh no" ripple through the internet. Because once CPS is mentioned, everything gets interpreted differently. Old clips get dragged back out. Past arguments get replayed with new meaning. Suddenly, moments that were once dismissed as messy behavior get framed like evidence in a courtroom. The narrative stops being about personality and starts being about fitness, responsibility, and judgment. And here's where things got ugly fast. People didn't wait for facts. They never do. They chose sides immediately. Some viewers were furious, calling the move reckless and unforgivable. Others took the opposite stance, arguing that authorities don't get involved unless something serious is going on. And right there, boom, that's the trap. Because once that question enters the chat, there's no way to answer it without damaging someone. Chrisean's reaction poured gasoline on the fire. Her voice wasn't calm, her words weren't measured. This wasn't a PR statement written by someone in a blazer. This was emotion spilling over, uncontrolled and unapologetic. She sounded blindsided, betrayed, and furious all at once, like someone who just realized the fight they thought was private had suddenly been dragged into a system that doesn't care about feelings. The internet interpreted that reaction in 100 different ways. Some said it proved guilt, others said it proved fear. Some argued it was the natural response of a mother feeling attacked, others claimed it was deflection. And every single interpretation added another layer of chaos, because once the crowd starts debating why someone is reacting instead of what actually happened, the truth becomes optional. What made this situation even more explosive was the timing. This didn't happen in a vacuum. Tensions were already simmering, words had already been exchanged, accusations had already floated around without fully landing. So when CPS allegedly entered the picture, it felt less like a surprise and more like the final straw snapping under too much weight, a move that said, "I'm done playing by the unspoken rules." And let's talk about those rules for a second. In celebrity culture, there's an invisible line everyone pretends exists. You can insult each other, you can expose messages, you can embarrass someone publicly. But involving authorities, especially when children are involved, that's considered crossing into forbidden territory. That's when people stop grabbing popcorn and start clutching pearls. Chrisean's meltdown wasn't just emotional. It was symbolic. It signaled to the audience that something irreversible had happened. You could hear it in her tone. This wasn't about winning an argument anymore. This was about survival. About control being ripped away and handed to a system that doesn't care about social media narratives or personal intentions. Meanwhile, speculation exploded like fireworks on a dry field. People started asking questions no one could answer. Who made the call? What was said? Was it preventative or punitive? Was it genuine concern or strategic retaliation? Every unanswered question became its own rumor, and every rumor got treated like fact. 5 minutes later, the wildest part, nobody actually knew anything. But that didn't stop anyone from talking. Armchair experts flooded the comments. Legal advice got handed out like free samples. Parenting critiques came from people who couldn't keep a houseplant alive. And through it all, Chrisean stood at the center of the storm, reacting in real time to a narrative she no longer controlled. Her response didn't slow the chaos, it accelerated it. Clips were reposted out of context. Words were trimmed down. To the most explosive soundbites, tone mattered more than content. And suddenly, the story stopped being about what triggered the situation and started being about whether her reaction looked right to strangers on the internet. That's the cruel twist of scandals like this. Once authority gets involved, emotions are treated like confessions, anger becomes suspicious, defensiveness becomes evidence, silence becomes guilt. There's no winning combination, only different flavors of backlash. As the hours passed, it became clear this wasn't going to blow over. This wasn't a 24-hour outrage cycle. This had teeth. People started revisiting past moments, connecting dots that may or may not have ever been related. The narrative expanded beyond one incident and turned into a full-blown character trial, conducted entirely by strangers with WI-V. And the scariest part, this was only the beginning, because once CPS enters the rumor mill, consequences don't happen instantly. They unfold slowly, quietly, and often out of public view. The uncertainty alone is enough to drive anyone over the edge. And Chrisean knew it. You could hear it in her voice. The fear wasn't just about reputation. It was about what might happen next, behind closed doors, where cameras don't follow. By the time the internet realized how serious this was, the damage was already spreading. Relationships were strained, trust was shattered, and the line between concern and cruelty blurred beyond recognition. What started as tension had transformed into a scandal with real-world implications, and nobody knew how far it would go. Once the CPS rumor detonated, the internet didn't just react, it mutated. This wasn't outrage anymore. This was digital anarchy with Wi-Fi. The timeline turned into a courtroom, a comedy club, and a conspiracy forum all at once. And everyone thought they were the smartest person in the room. Memes popped up faster than facts. Opinions moved quicker than truth. And suddenly, this situation wasn't even about what happened, it was about how entertaining the chaos could become. Within hours, reaction videos flooded every platform like a broken dam. People who had never spoken on the situation suddenly had deep concerns. Folks who couldn't spell CPS 5 minutes earlier were now quoting policy like they wrote the handbook. Every pause in Chrisean's speech got analyzed. Every facial expression became a psychological case study. and every breath she took was interpreted as either guilt, fear, or manipulation depending on who you asked. Meanwhile, memes did what memes always do. They stripped all seriousness from the situation and turned it into viral currency. CPS jokes bounced around timelines like loose fireworks. Some were dark, some were reckless, some crossed lines so hard they didn't even see the line anymore. But here's the uncomfortable truth: those memes kept the story alive. They turned outrage into entertainment, and entertainment into obsession. Celebrity reactions didn't help either. Subtle likes, cryptic reposts, side-eye emojis that said more than a paragraph ever could. Nobody wanted to say too much, but everybody wanted their presence felt, because silence in moments like this doesn't look neutral, it looks strategic. And every non-comment was treated like confirmation of something nobody could prove. Chrisean, meanwhile, wasn't getting a break. The louder the internet got, the more boxed in she seemed. Anything she said fueled the fire. Fueled the fire. Anything she didn't say fueled it even more. People accused her of spiraling, then mocked her for reacting emotionally to what felt like an existential threat. It was a lose-lose scenario dressed up as public concern. And let's talk about how fast the narrative shifted. At first, people asked what happened. That question didn't last long. It quickly turned into who's lying. Then it evolved into who deserves blame. And finally, it landed on the most dangerous question of all: who should we cancel next? Because once CPS gets involved, the internet doesn't just want answers, it wants punishment. Old footage resurfaced like it had been waiting patiently for its moment. Clips taken out of context, moments frozen in time and replayed with a brand new lens. Stuff that once looked chaotic now looked incriminating, at least according to the comment section. The past got rewritten in real time. And suddenly everyone was acting like they'd seen the signs all along. The comparisons got outrageous. People started likening the situation to reality TV meltdowns, celebrity custody wars, even infamous scandals that had nothing to do with this case. Someone said this made Love and Hip Hop look like a preschool musical. Another joked that reality television producers were somewhere foaming at the mouth over ratings potential. Dark humor thrived, even as the stakes climbed higher. Public outrage didn't stay focused either. It splintered. Some aimed it at Jaidyn, accusing her of weaponizing systems that should be used cautiously. Others aimed it squarely at Chrisean, insisting that emotional reactions only deepen suspicion. And then there were those who blamed the internet itself for turning a serious matter into a circus. Ironically, those same people were still refreshing their feeds every 5 minutes. Chrisean's emotional state became a trending topic of its own. People dissected her tone like it was a leaked voicemail. Was she angry because she was scared? Was she scared because she knew something? Was she overreacting or reacting exactly how anyone would if they felt cornered by an invisible system with real power? Every theory sounded convincing depending on who was telling it. And then came the fake insiders. Suddenly everyone knew someone who knew someone. Anonymous accounts claimed exclusive details. Threads popped up promising the real story with absolutely zero proof. But proof didn't matter anymore. The algorithm doesn't reward accuracy, it rewards intensity. And this story had intensity pouring out of every angle. The wildest twist: some fans started flipping sides mid-scroll. One post would make them furious at one person. The next would completely reverse their stance. The narrative wasn't stable enough to hold onto. It kept shifting, twisting, reshaping itself based on the loudest voice at the moment. Truth didn't stand a chance against momentum. Through all of this, the seriousness of CPS involvement somehow got lost in translation. What should have been handled delicately was treated like a season finale cliffhanger. People speculated on outcomes like they were placing bets. And that's when it became clear this wasn't just about one incident anymore. This was about how the internet consumes conflict until there's nothing left but debris. As pressure mounted, the tone of the conversation grew harsher. Empathy evaporated. Everyone wanted accountability. But nobody agreed on what accountability even looked like. Should someone apologize? Should someone disappear? Should someone tell the truth? Even though no one could agree on what that truth was, and just when it felt like the noise couldn't get louder, it did, because scandals like this don't peak quickly. They stretch out, dragging everyone through wave after wave of reaction, backlash, and speculation. Each new post reignited the fire, each reaction video added another spark. And the internet showed no signs of slowing down. By the end of this phase, one thing was undeniable: the situation had escaped everyone's control. What began as an alleged action turned into a public feeding frenzy fueled by memes, outrage, half-truths, and unchecked emotion. And Chrisean stood at the center of it all, watching her name trend for reasons no one ever wants. But the internet doesn't stay angry forever. Eventually, it gets curious about consequences, and once curiosity turns into judgment, the fallout becomes unavoidable. Because after the noise fades, something always gets left behind, and that's when the real damage starts to show. When the noise finally started to fade, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt heavy, like the kind of quiet that settles in after something irreversible has already happened. Because once CPS enters the narrative, nothing snaps back to normal. There's no reset button, no apology tour strong enough to undo the damage. Just consequences, some loud, some quiet, all permanent in their own way. Chrisean's public image didn't just wobble, it fractured, not because one side was definitively right or wrong, but because doubt had officially been introduced. And doubt is a parasite. It doesn't need proof to survive, it just needs time. Every feature clip, every post, every emotional moment now carried a shadow it didn't have before. People stopped asking, "Is she being dramatic?" and started asking, "What if?" That single shift changed everything. Relationships took the hardest hit. Trust doesn't survive situations like this, it gets shredded. Lines that were once blurred became walls overnight. Conversations that used to happen privately now felt too risky to have at all. Because once someone believes authorities were involved, nothing feels off limits anymore. Everyone starts protecting themselves, even from people they used to stand beside. The public, meanwhile, moved on the way it always does, slowly, selectively, and without apology. Some viewers quietly backed away, uncomfortable with how serious the situation had become. Others doubled down, insisting their original opinions were validated by the chaos alone. And then there were the spectators who simply waited for the next update, because for them, this was still content. What made the aftermath especially brutal was the uncertainty. No clear resolution, no satisfying conclusion, just questions hanging in the air like smoke that refuses to clear. Was the situation resolved quietly? Did it escalate behind closed doors? Was the internet ever meant to know the outcome? That ambiguity kept the story alive long after the trending tabs moved on. Chrisean's emotional volatility, once treated like entertainment, started being reframed as liability. Critics didn't laugh anymore. They scrutinized. Every outburst was seen as potential confirmation of instability. Every calm moment was accused of being performative. It didn't matter what she did, the narrative had already been written in pencil, ready to be erased and rewritten at will. The irony is that this kind of scandal doesn't just punish the people at the center, it punishes everyone around them. Friends became cautious, supporters became conditional, silence started sounding like strategy, and loyalty became something people whispered about instead of demonstrating publicly. Because nobody wants to be collateral damage when the internet decides it's time for another round. Meanwhile, the broader conversation shifted to something darker. Not drama, not beef, but power. Who has it? Who can weaponize systems? And who pays the price when lines get crossed? The audience started realizing that this wasn't just messy, it was a warning shot. A reminder that once personal conflicts collide with institutions, the fallout doesn't stay personal. Chrisean's future interactions were now viewed through a distorted lens. Any disagreement risked being interpreted as escalation. Any argument could be reframed as a pattern. The benefit of the doubt evaporated, replaced by constant evaluation. That's the invisible cost of scandals like this. You don't just lose reputation, you lose neutrality. And let's not pretend the internet learned anything from this. It didn't, if anything. It proved once again how quickly serious situations get turned into digital spectacle. Concern became content, fear became fuel, and complexity got flattened into clickbait arguments that fit neatly into captions. But behind all the noise, something real lingered. A sense that a line had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. Whether people believed it was justified or reckless didn't matter anymore. The fact that it happened was enough to change trajectories. Because once a situation reaches this level, it doesn't disappear, it embeds itself into every future chapter. The scariest part is that nobody really won. Not the commentators, not the fans, not the people involved. What remained was tension, distrust, and a reminder that public lives come with private consequences that don't trend neatly. The cameras move on, but the impact stays. And here's the chilling truth. This doesn't feel like the end. It feels like a pause. A moment where everyone is catching their breath before the next revelation, the next leak, the next explosion. Because scandals like this don't resolve cleanly, they resurface when you least expect them. Louder and messier than before. That's so as the internet scrolls forward, pretending this chapter closed. One question hangs unanswered. What happens the next time emotions boil over? What happens when trust is already broken? And what happens when a system has already been invited into a situation that used to live entirely online? If your jaw is still on the floor, congratulations, you survived another internet meltdown that went from petty to permanent in record time. And if you're sitting there thinking, nah, this crossed a line, or nah, she had every right to snap, good. That means you're exactly who needs to be in the comments, because silence is boring, and boring doesn't move culture. Drop your take below. Was involving CPS a step too far? Or was it the inevitable consequence of chaos spiraling out of control? Don't sugarcoat it. Don't tiptoe around feelings. Say it with your chest. Argue respectfully or argue recklessly. We don't judge. We just read everything. Now smash that like button like it owes you money. Hit subscribe like you're locking in front row seats to the next meltdown. And turn on notifications so you don't miss the next scandal when it drops at 2 a.m. with zero warning. Because let's be real, this internet never sleeps, and neither do the messes we cover. This channel doesn't do bedtime stories. We do expose timelines, public breakdowns, leaked chaos, and scandals that unravel in real time. If it's explosive, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore, it lands here first. And trust, this story isn't finished. The cameras might be quiet, but the tension is still humming. Something always leaks, someone always talks, and when it does, you already know where to find it. So stay locked in, stay loud, and stay skeptical. Because in this era of viral outrage and selective memory, the LED ruckus is where the noise gets decoded and the chaos gets called out.